I think I'd prefer to have things on the commend side. I'd positive judgments of people. And then I'd like to be at the very farthest on the negative side, neutral. That's where I'd like to be. I don't want to be on the, it doesn't feel good. I think that's my problem, is I don't feel good when I'm thinking about negative things. Hello, everyone. I'm here with my dad, and we're recording another conversation for our podcast. Our podcast is Do You Have a Minute? And today we're going to talk about all of the judgments that I hold.
You specifically?
Me specifically. Well, we're not going to specifically talk about the judgments, but we're going to talk about how it feels like I hold a lot of judgments for people.
A very personal call today.
We're reading, you and I are reading a book. We're going to be talking about a book in about a month. Maybe, no, it's got to be, 7 weeks from now. We've got a bit of time. And just through the first part, the book is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first part is just illuminating, how we got to work on ourselves first before we start trying to work on, our inside self, before we start working on our outside self. And that's kind of showing me that.
So judgments.
My judgments are something that I need to work on.
They're an inside self thing then.
Yeah.
You're identifying.
Right. Inside, being judgmental is that's a bad thing. If you're a judgmental person, then that's bad, right?
That's my first question. Is why is judgment always bad?
Yeah.
Anytime you say judgment, it means that you're on a negative side of life. Why is that? Why is judgment a negative word?
Yeah. Good question.
It's not a negative process. It's a process of trying to identify truth, I believe. Is that right?
So, right. If you're a judge, then you're trying to identify the truth of a matter. If you're if you're a judge of the court.
A judge in the court is just trying to identify the truth. Or, in a court setting, how does that go? How does judgment occur in a court?
The two sides present their facts as they know it, and then the judge judges whether one side is more right or justified or deserves, compensation for what the other side did.
Okay, so, and it's all in the past. It's all historical. So that's why in judging, are you always just looking at the wake? Can you ever look at what's happening right now? Or is it just the wake? It's what happened in the past that you have to judge. That's the way courts operate, is they're judging something in the past.
Yeah, maybe when you judge someone's character, that you're constantly scrutinizing what's happening in front of you. Maybe? I don't know. You're taking a really long time to answer.
That's a snap judgment. Yeah, I'm trying to, because you've opened up, there's 8 tentacles to this octopus, and now we're trying to see which one to follow.
Okay.
So one of those, judging in the past, but snap judgments. What do they say that you have just a second when you meet someone new? It's not a snap judgment, it's a first impression.
Oh, yes. First impressions.
Meet someone new, you have a first impression that you're making a judgment quickly just based on what they're wearing or how they present themselves, how they walk, how they said that. You've got a judgment. You can identify a lot about that person just from 30 seconds with them.
Yeah.
And you have a place that you put them based on your judgment of that first impression.
So is the judgment itself just a neutral thing that happens? It's going to happen no matter what, and it's neutral. And then you can take it positive or negative from there.
Okay, something that's going to happen. So, you just said, is it something that just happens?
Yeah, maybe that's exactly what I said.
You can determine whether it's positive or negative. So, is it possible to not judgment? Is
it possible to not judge?
Yeah. Can you meet someone for the first time and not have any idea about what they are, who they are? Is that even possible? To have a first impression, but not have a first impression?
I think that's a good point. It's not possible to not have a first impression.
Right. I'm thinking that just the fact that you can name it a judgment, or you can say, I didn't judge you. You judge them by saying, I didn't judge you. It's like an inaction is an action. A non-decision is a decision. A non-judgment is a judgment.
Okay.
So judgments happen all the time. It's just when we talk about them, when you think about the judgments you're doing and saying, I'm feeling bad about it, you feel bad about it because you think they're all negative.
Because I'm thinking I'm creating a negative meaning from the judgment that I had.
Creating a negative meaning. It does mean negative. Do you ever state positive judgment? So I'm thinking the only judgment you're going to hold or espouse or state or say is if it's negative. Are you ever going to say a positive judgment?
I think you could judge someone's character to be something negative, like that person seems to me that he's got a good head on his shoulders, or that person seems very responsible, and I love that this person's always punctual. Like that's a personal perspective judgment of what they're doing, who they are.
So you've just given a lot of positive, everything you said there was a positive judgment.
Yeah. So wouldn't that be right then?
Yeah. So what's that called? Or you're not telling, okay, here's my judgment for you. You've got a good head on your shoulders.
Yeah, you don't say, here's my judgment.
You don't say judgment. You don't use the word judgment. What word do you use?
You call it opinion?
A compliment, probably.
Oh, a compliment. A compliment is a positive spin of a judgment that you created.
Is a positive judgment. So a compliment is the opposite. So on the spectrum, on the dualism, the spectrum of judgments, you got a negative judgment, which is called a judgment. You've got a positive judgment, which I believe is called a compliment. You're going to compliment their actions.
It's a compliment if you say it out loud. Is it a compliment if you keep it to yourself? If you're thinking, I really like this person because I'm judging them to be fair, or I'm judging them to be...
Okay, so how do you say that to yourself? I'm judging this person to be a fair person with a good head on his shoulders. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So how do you frame that in your brain?
Yeah, I don't think that most people consciously frame that in their brain. It just is a subconscious thing that happens.
And why would you hold it? You wouldn't mind being in their presence again. You can't wait to see them again.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to our next meeting. If you're saying that, can't wait for our next meeting? It's still a compliment, I think. You're complimenting.
You're secretly complimenting them to yourself.
You don't have to state a compliment. You can state a compliment. You can state a judgment. You don't have to state a negative judgment either. So your positive judgment, your compliments, you don't have to give out.
Yeah, you said that judgment and compliment are two ends of the spectrum. I think it's a judgment spectrum, and one end is compliment, and maybe the other end is condemnation. You're condemning someone.
Okay. So of the judgment spectrum, it has the two ends, compliment and condemnation. Compliment, condemn.
I don't know if it's compliment, though. Condemn feels better.
What's the opposite of condemn? So you're going to condemn someone, or you're going to promote them or support them?
Support. That feels good.
Support or promote. So on the positive side, is there a judgment spectrum? Maybe we should see what AI says about that.
Okay.
See what it says. Spectrum of decision making.
Decision making. That's what a judgment is. It's a decision. Maybe the opposite of condemn would be endorse or commend.
Yeah, commend, commendation. A condemnation or a commendation. Yeah, this spectrum idea it tended to autism or decision spectrum, so not necessarily.
You can't use the word spectrum online because it's only autistic.
Yeah. Online puts you, so maybe I should go to incognito mode and figure out what it is without all of my autism searches.
That's illuminating.
Yeah, right.
Does Mom ever use your computer?
No.
Oh, okay.
She knows everything. She knows everything about that already anyway. She doesn't need to search anymore.
Oh, all right. Yeah, by saying that out loud, does Mom ever use your computer? That's a condemnation of my mother that I hold.
Yeah, because you automatically made a judgment that she's the one that's more interested in autistic
And she's
spectrums
yeah, it's
than I am.
sometimes it feels like that is overtaking our lives, is the conversation around everyone that might be autistic or has ADHD. And so I don't like that. It's a negative thing to me. And so now I'm condemning mom for doing that. But really it's a neutral thing, right?
Well, it's a fact. I don't know. It's not neutral. There's probably no neutrals, but it's the effect on it is what effect you choose to place on it, whether you move it towards the condemnation side of your spectrum or the commendation side. It's commendable that she's considering that. And you could say the same thing. You have some person focused on studying autism and spectrums and how far someone is on that spectrum.
Uh-huh.
That's a good thing. So you could commend them. You've done some great study there. And you've used my computer and you've made my computer think that that's the only thing in the world. So that's one way to think about it, positively, or you could think negatively. I have no interest in that. And since I have no interest in that, I'm condemning that person for wasting all of their time on SpongeBob videos.
Right.
Or whatever.
Right. Whatever it is that they're interested in that I think is a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a judgment. If it's football, the Super Bowl's coming up sometime soon, and I'm likely to watch that, even though it's a waste of time.
It's a condemnation, an act of condemnation that I'm performing in my head.
And it was a snap judgment, right? It's something you currently hold.
Yeah. Snap judgment, though. So that's making the word judgment a negative word. It's making it, when you say snap judgment, it's negative.
Only because it's a condemnation. Yeah. You could have a snap judgment that, well, what do you love that someone does? Someone does something and you love that they do that.
I have a friend who plays cello with a local orchestra.
Okay.
Is it an orchestra? Yeah, it's an orchestra. And I love that they're so dedicated to it. I think it's admirable that they hold space in their life for that activity. And they don't just let their work or their family take over their life. They have this thing that's just for them that they do that makes them happy. And I really like to see that.
It's a hobby then. So you have a snap judgment you hold for that person.
I don't think it's a snap judgment though, is it? It's something that it's based on a value. It's based on I make a judgment and it's positive or negative based on the values that I hold. So I value self-care, maybe
Hobbies.
That's my value, not hobby. I don't value hobby. I value what hobby means. It means doing something you like, and it encompasses a whole lot of stuff, but that value, when I see somebody fulfilling that value that I hold, then I'm continually looking for that and making judgments and judging that to be a positive thing. Maybe
you're commending it. If you agree with something, you have to make a judgment to agree with something. So you agree with that lifestyle, with that hobby the individual has, saying it's encouraging their life, enhancing their life, and I agree with that hobby.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make my judgment in agreement of it. So you've got an agreement on the right side. On the one side of the spectrum, the other side of the spectrum is a disagreement. Yeah, I disagree that that's a valid hobby to use. Exercising your fingers on the fret of a cello doesn't do anything to benefit the world.
Are you saying you do disagree, or is that just the other end of the spectrum?
It's the other end of the spectrum.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I don't know. I mean, and my personal judgment on that. So you have a personal judgment that you appreciate that person for what they're doing. I'm more towards the disagreement side. I mean, that person is not being paid for that cello thing, and that's. So, I'm not in a band. We've talked about this in the past. You've got bands that you're a part of, and you want to be part of another band, and I'm in a choir. that doesn't take a whole lot of time, and it's not continuously year-round. It's seasonal at this point.
Okay.
And if they do go year-round, I may not be involved that much in it. So I enjoy the seasonal aspect of that musical thing. But it depends on what they're missing. Just in my life, I don't have time for other hobbies. There are other things that are important that I couldn't go out and just enjoy being a part of a band.
Yeah.
A band would be useless for me, and is useless. That's why I don't do it. You do it because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Do you find it useful?
That's
a long pause. I think that you have a...
I think I'm trying to identify what use it has. It's the band I'm part of is a bagpipe band, and the mission of the band itself is to promote music education and the Scottish culture in our area. That's tradition and culture is important to a lot of people. It might not be as important to me. I think it's cool, but it's not like a deep value that I hold. Culture isn't yet a deep value that I hold, and so that's not so important. But I think that knowing music can help in a lot of different areas of your life that would be surprising. And also it exercises your brain. Maybe it keeps you away from dementia longer if you're using music that way, I guess.
Right. I agree with that. There's a lot of connections that everything we do benefits, and the connecting aspect of it.
So the fact that I'm doing something, if I replaced music with chess, then that would be the same thing. I would be exercising my brain.
Operate your brain just the same.
Yeah. Chess would be a little bit more isolating. I don't like isolation. That is not a value that I hold. I try and keep my kids from isolating themselves in my house. Like no computers and tablets and phones in their bedrooms, because I don't want isolation in here. I want community. And so chess would be more isolating, so I'd have to be a part of a chess club that meets regularly if I did that. So I think that's another reason why I like the band idea rather than just playing music alone in my house.
So you're judging chess in a respect there.
In a respect.
And it's more on the disapproval side.
People that play chess only online. Yeah, sure, you're a great chess player, but is it really benefiting?
You're doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
You're in the basement of your mother's house and
so that's a judgment.
Playing chess.
That's a judgment that I hold, I guess. And video games would be way better for a lot of people if they actually left their home and did video gaming with a group of other people.
If you did that Squid Game, the actual Squid Game in person.
In person. But that's not a video game. That's a...
Well, it is a video game. That isn't that what it's based on? It's an actual event, but it's...
Though what in the show, it was that all of the games that they played were based off of childhood games that they played in like grade school.
In real life, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Red light, green light, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The games that you play as kids. Okay.
So yeah.
So do you feel...
I do make a judgment. On...
Do you feel bad or good about that judgment in regard to in your space, being with people or being alone? Is that a good judgment or a bad judgment in your brain? I
think the value is good. I think it's not fair of me to condemn someone because they're participating in something that I don't value.
So fairness has something to do with judgments. Can you make unfair judgments?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be the condemnation side. I think those would be unfair judgments because I am not one of those chess players. I'm not Mom. Mom can find all the enjoyment she wants in researching autism, and there's probably great use in, like, she's doing a lot of good for our whole family, I think, because she's recognizing where people maybe need improvement, maybe that's what it is.
And we're trying to figure out and decipher, and she's a deep thinker in all those things, whether it's autism or narcissism.
Yeah.
Or what it is that actually is happening, because she's trying to study those. I don't know what the next thing that's going to come up is. Whatever it is, it's going to roll to something else. She's not going to stop thinking, but whether she's as good at talking as you and I are, talk it through, she's not interested in talking it through.
Yeah,
But
which
she
is
does want to keep learning.
Isolating, I guess, and that's another. So
More
she's
isolating. Whether a person could be an isolative learner. I want to learn it, but I don't want to talk with anybody about it because I'm going to develop my own opinions. And that's back to the independence. Are you responsible for your judgments? You're responsible for your own judgments, but can they benefit other people? That's, I think, what you're kind of pointing to. Should they be voiced? Should your judgments be voiced?
That is one question around this conversation, is what judgments should be voiced, what judgments should not. Maybe this is one of those tattletaling things. If you're tattling, you're just trying to get someone in trouble. But if you're reporting on something, then that's to hopefully make something better, you know?
You're still getting them in trouble. You're still identifying a wrong. Or you could report and identify a right, a good. You could give a condemnation, nominating someone for Citizen of the Year. That's a judgment. It's a good judgment. It's a positive thing.
I'm going to tattle on this person. They went and cleaned up the whole freeway stretch between this street and that street.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell the city all about it.
I know they did it by themselves, and they wore an orange vest, and they used orange bags, and so they were very safe in it. You could identify all of the good things about it and commend them completely and agree with that work. But then you could judge negatively on that, say they wasted their whole day. I mean, if they spent a week on that, they should have gone to work. They're going to get fired from their job. That
freeway is just going to get dirty again anyway. And, it's a waste of time. Yeah. Just take a lawnmower out there and mow it all into pieces.
Yeah. And no one even lives there. So who's going to see it? I mean, the people driving by aren't going to dedicate any time to sitting there in the park. Why would you make a park out of the side of the freeway?
Yeah. So the judgment, voicing the judgment out loud, it makes sense when you can affect change. It makes sense to voice a judgment. But when something isn't going to change no matter what. Well, what's that Lord's Prayer thing? God grant me the serenity to accept.
Serenity prayer, yeah.
Yeah. It's not the Lord's Prayer. Yeah, it's whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I'm not religious. I don't know.
Oh, right. Well, that's Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what that is.
Okay. But how does it go?
And I don't know if grant me the wisdom to know the difference. No.
That's the end.
I'm thinking of
you got the end.
No, I'm thinking that's not even the serenity prayer. That is Richard Camelot. No, that's Who's the king in Camelot?
Let me say what it says.
Go ahead, serenity prayer, but I'll look up the Camelot.
There's a few different iterations of it.
King Arthur's prayer.
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. What's King Arthur's prayer?
King Arthur's prayers, may God grant us the wisdom to discover right, and then choose it, and the strength to make it endure.
I like King Arthur. What a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but the serenity prayer then is the wisdom to know the difference,
Yeah, that's what it said. The serenity to accept the things I can't change, and the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
To know the difference. The things I can change, I can't change. And so on top of that, so you know what you can't change, know what you can change with wisdom. And God grant us the wisdom to discover the right. So which is identify the things I can change, choose to change those things, and the strength to make it endure, to continue with those things, to make it a habit.
Yeah. So when you hold a negative, when you've got a negative opinion of someone, you're condemning someone in your own brain, then you don't have the serenity to accept the things you cannot change.
Because you can't do anything about that. You're wasting your time. It's a waste of energy and thought and your effort. A waste of effort to judge negatively. perhaps anything
Yeah.
based on these two prayers. And the purpose is to make a change, to identify a good change or a benefit for society or for yourself.
Yeah. So when you can make a change, then it's a positive thing. When you're commending, you can also try and make a change of something negative. You can change something negative and it wouldn't be a commendation. It would be a judgment that you made that ended up being a negative thing, and now you need to fix it. Maybe that's a self thing, an inside of you.
You can see someone, but instead of telling them you did the wrong thing, by cleaning up the freeway, spending a week on that freeway spot, making a park out of that piece of the freeway that no one's going to sit in, I'm not going to do that with my life. So you identify the things you can change. You can't change what they spent their week on, but you can change what you're going to spend your week on. And you have the wisdom to know the difference between those two things. So you're not going to waste any time on trying to tell that person, you've done the wrong thing. I'm judging you on this, and this is an appropriate judgment. It may be very valid, may be very appropriate. You did the wrong thing there. You wasted your week on that. You should have been in your federal office doing your federal job that our taxpayers are paying you for. But no, you cleaned up the freeway.
What if they come to you with their plans? They're like, hey, do you think it would make sense for me to go and clean this other part of the freeway? I mean, well, I guess that would bleed into the thing that you can change.
Yeah, you can change because they're asking your opinion. So certainly they're asking your opinion. Give your opinion. You have the right now to advise, to give some advice of this is the way I see it. And they may choose to see it differently. If they say, well, thank you for your opinion, and then go off and do it anyway, that's okay. At least you able to give your opinion, but you can't feel bad about them or giving it to them or what they're acting on now. That's their choice. Yeah,
that falls back into the things that you can't change.
Okay. And that kind of, let me introduce the other concept here that I was thinking about with judgment. If you think that they disregarded you, what is that D-I-S? What does it mean?
Disappointment. What?
Not disappointment.
Discover. Undo.
If you say someone dissed me, and we talked about that in the last conversation, disrespected me. That's what it is. Dis means disrespect. So I gave them my best information. It's valid information. I give it to you, but you dissed me with it. You went ahead and did the thing that I advised you not to do anyway. And so you disrespected me. Now what's my position? Why would I say that to them? Why would you tell anyone they disrespected you? You've disrespected me. And I want to propose that it's because you feel like you're a victim to what they did. They harmed you by not accepting what you thought was good judgment.
Okay.
And so now you're victim status. So the thing I want to approach now is, if you're giving a bad judgment, is it always from the victim status? Since we talked about victimhood. And I'm of the thought that it is, that you cannot give a bad judgment unless you're a victim of it.
Unless you feel victimized.
Unless you're taking that victim role. You got to take that victim role in order to give a bad judgment.
Okay.
A coach will always give a good judgment. A coach will never say, we lost because you did this and did this and did this. The coach is going to say, you did these good things. You were a little bit short on these things, but it's still going to be in the position of a coach as opposed to a perpetrator. What was the other one?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, if they're a good coach, if they are actually a good coach, then
they're going to work towards positive change.
Challenging instead of
condemning.
Yeah, this is the drama triangle thing again.
Right.
So
on the drama triangle, well, the victim turns into what does he turn into?
A hero? No.
The hero is the bad one. The coach is good. The coach turns into a hero.
Oh, right. I'm looking at the bad drama triangle, and you have to switch it over to, you have to shift to creator, coach, and challenger.
Yeah, the victim turns into a creator.
Right.
The rescuer turns into a coach. The persecutor challenges. So you have that positive side of judgment is being a challenger, a coach, and a creator. You're going to do something different now. You're going to judge to the positive. A victim triangle, the dreaded drama triangle. In drama, you're going to persecute someone. You're going to try to rescue them because they don't know what they're doing. I've got to save them from this thing I'm judging them poorly on. Or the victim, you've disrespected me, and so I have to tell you about it.
Yeah. Okay. So let me think of another example then.
An example of victimization, or
An example of where I'm apparently being a victim. I'm feeling victimized by someone else's choices, which is really silly when I put it
you
that
can create
way.
a judgment. Let's see if we can find a judgment that you can create or you can hold and not be a victim in holding that judgment.
Okay.
So
Let's say every neighborhood has sexual predators, right? It seems like every neighborhood
that's a
has
judgment.
a convicted. You can search online and say, where are all of the sexual predators in my area?
Okay.
And I think this is a government website that you searched on. Anyway, the records show that there may be a few on my street, and they point out their specific addresses, like their exact addresses, perhaps to help people decide whether they want to live in that area or where to keep their kids from going or who to be careful around. I don't know. But so if I know that on my street stretches eight blocks total, I think, where the houses are on my street. So I think there's total eight blocks on my street, and I think there might be 3 or 4 convicted predators on this street. So if I know that, and I can judge that their past behavior isn't they're not the kind of person that I want to hang out with. It's negative. I'm not going to do that. Am I being a victim by knowing that and making that judgment call? Or am I being, what's the other thing? Am I being a creator, creating safety around myself and my family by avoiding those people? I don't know.
And in what, by avoiding them, you're avoiding being a victim. Are you a victim because, do you feel they're bad people? I mean, what's your judgment of those people? Your judgment is that they're once a sex offender, always a sex offender. Is that the judgment?
I know that I don't know the details of all of these. I know the details of one of them because they do live a couple houses away from me, or they did used to before they got carted off to jail. So I got information from the officers that were arresting him as to what actually was going on there. But I do know that someone can be labeled a predator if they're over 20 or 21 or something, and they're dating an older teen, an older teen who seems to think that they know what they want out of life, but then they realize, oh, whoops, I got pregnant and I don't want this baby, and now I need to figure out some way to make this all better. And the best way to make this all better is to charge my boyfriend, who's not my boyfriend anymore, with rape or some, I don't know. There's, you can create a story where the sexual predator wasn't actually a predator in the first place. They were just conned into thinking somebody was 18
they were in
when
love.
They were just 17 or things like that, I mean, how do you prove someone's 18 anyway, unless you ask them for their identification? You don't do that when you're trying to date someone.
Right. Specifics. I mean, I look in my area, within 25 miles of me, there are 2 sex offenders.
You're so isolated all the way up there.
I'm in a rural area, so I don't have anyone within a block or anything. I mean, and that's the nearest one was 8 miles away. So I don't know where that is, where that person might live, but it's 8 miles away. So not in my town. Let's see. Lucky me.
Lucky you.
Why is it lucky me? I mean, why? Where's the victim in that? You're holding an idea that you want to stay away from these people who have been convicted of sex crimes. Let's say.
Maybe I'm holding an opinion of them where I know that they've done this crime of some sort in the past, and so that means that perhaps they've got other issues going on too. It's It's never an isolated thought.
Yeah. So we can delve in deeper to that and try to figure out if it's a valid thought. But really, are you a victim? Are you a victim in that judgment? Did they do something to you, or do you feel like they did something to you that causes you to requires you to do something different?
I do something different because of the knowledge that I have.
Yeah. If you have to, so here's another question. If you feel like you have to place a boundary, does that mean you're a victim? You've judged someone doing something to you that you've got to place up a boundary and change your action, because you can't change their action. That's an inappropriate thing. But if you place a boundary, you're going to change your action based on the fact that you know this, you're judging this over there. So I think that's an example of, clearly, if you have that judgment, you're a victim. You're a victim of their sexual abuse, even though they only live 3 houses down or 8 miles away. I'm not going to go in that direction if I want to judge myself to stay away from this type of thing.
Because I have a negative judgment, I'm judging negatively about them.
Your negative judgment makes you a victim.
If I was judging positively, then I would not be a victim.
And judging positively says, I think sex offenders, I mean, that's something they did at a time. You could say that I don't care about that. And you'd just say, I don't care about that.
That would be neutral. It wouldn't be positive. It would make it neutral. Like, that has nothing to do with me. So.
Okay, you could be neutral,
non-issue.
Or you could be positive. I guess positive, if you want to commend them completely, you'd identify who they are and go and get to be their friend and say, how can I help you further repair your life and become a better person? So if you're fully complimentary of them, you would get to be their friend. You'd identify where they are so that you can help them. If you're going to be a victim and judge them negatively, you're going to stay as far away from them as possible and tell your kids, don't even look that way at their house, because I don't know what you might see if you look that way.
Yeah.
A neutral is not a judgmental position. So judgment, I think, is only on the far judging side of the spectrum. Victimhood is only on the far judging side. If you judge negatively, and maybe we should look into another issue.
Mm-hmm.
So you brought up the predator thing. Dogs, let's say dogs.
Okay.
How people handle their dogs. Is there a judgment you hold of dogs? If you see a dog on the street, should it be on a leash?
If I have my dogs with me, then other dogs should be on a leash, because that's the law in the city. If I don't have my dogs with me, I'm okay with their dog being off leash. So it's situational.
So if your dog's, if your dog's on a leash, you want every other dog on a leash as well.
No, if my dogs, I put my dogs on a leash because I can't control them. So I don't do that because it's the law. It's because I don't want to have to pay somebody else's medical bills because my dog bit them. So I hold my dogs on my leash, but I can't control my dogs. So if someone else's dog is off leash, their dog runs up to my dogs go crazy, then my dog's the biter. What do I do? So I make a judgment. I'm like, your dog should be on a leash because my dogs can't be trusted.
Okay, now try to place the victim idea in all that whole conversation. Where's the victimhood?
I'm the victim because I am upset that someone else isn't doing something I think they should do.
Yeah, so you have to have a boundary. You're going to make sure your dogs are on a leash, or if you see the dog wandering without a leash, you're going to take your dogs inside very quickly. You're going to get out of the area.
Get out of the area.
I would imagine.
Yeah, but if I'm outside without my dogs and some dog comes up off of a leash, I judge that the owner knows that their dog is safe off of a leash. They're not going to go up and just attack anyone they see. So I judge positively on that, and I'm okay with it.
You're not a victim of that because you have a positive judgment.
Yeah.
Of the person and the intelligence of that person and people in the city, people in our society generally. If they're going to have their dog off a leash, it means they have confidence in their dog. So I have confidence in them.
Yes. So maybe I'm a victim of my dogs, actually, and not the person who has their dog off of a leash. My dogs are victimizing me because of their behavior that I can't control.
You believe you can't control them.
Well, right. And so I guess by extension, I'm a victim of myself because I haven't done the work to control my dogs.
You haven't trained them. See, I also know I could fight off about any dog that shows up.
You know that.
Yeah. And I think you'd know that too. I mean, So it's okay. I'm not gonna be that frightened of a dog.
You know what? The best way to, I imagine the best way to stop a dog or a cat from biting you is to try and put your fingers in their throat. Give them your fingers. Here,
Shove your
eat
hand
this.
right into their throat.
They don't like that. They don't like that at all. Down their throat, not at their throat, into their mouth, down their throat.
Right in their mouth. Yeah. Or I read a book once about an African guy, and they were fighting lions.
Uh-huh.
And he killed this lion by getting a stick. He got a stick about 4 foot long. He just described it, about as big, long as his arm.
Oh, wow.
He had the stick, and the lion came up to bite him, and he shoved the stick in his mouth as soon as the lion opened his mouth. So he had to get that close to it, but he knew exactly what he was going to do.
That's the
And it's
soft
just a
palate
story.
in the
It's a
back of
book.
your mouth. That's
Yeah.
the weak spot.
Yeah, so he shoved it straight in there, and the lion couldn't do anything, and it just finally clamped down, and then I think it killed him based on the fact the stick went through his brain or something.
Well, yeah.
So he killed the lion with a stick.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but you got to be very brave, and so he wasn't a victim of that lion.
The lion was coming to get him, but he wasn't a victim. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So he didn't have any negative judgment of the lion. The lion was doing what he was doing. Anyone else that sees a lion on the street, I mean, you see a lion on the street now, a zoo lost an animal, and
Right.
everyone's afraid. Everyone's the victim of that escaped lion, even though the escaped lion isn't going to do anything to anyone. He's not out to eat. He's just out to find a place to get away from people, But everyone's a victim. If you judge that that's a fearful situation, you're judging negatively, and you're a victim.
And you're a victim.
Can you judge negatively and not be a victim? So dogs, we determined you can't do that. Judge negatively. What if someone kills animals?
Like hunters for sport or
No.
neglectful dog owners, maybe?
Okay, let's just say neglectful. Left it in the cage and let them starve.
Yeah.
Didn't feed the dog. He's in a cage, and you see this dead dog. I mean, we had a house there in your city at one time that had a pen out in the back that had 2 dog carcasses in it.
Really?
That most likely, it was that way when the first one where we moved to the city.
Oh. Are the dog carcasses the reason we weren't allowed to go in the backyard?
Probably, most
Oh.
likely.
Okay.
Your mother made that decision. Don't go back there in that stuff
glad
because
that
it's too
she didn't
dangerous.
Tell us why.
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah.
nightmares.
So, yeah, now you can have them now.
Okay.
But the 2 dogs in those cages, locked up and not fed, and maybe the people already moved before that happened, but maybe they did it on purpose. I don't know. No way to tell. But as a judgment in that case, so they did a wrong thing. That's kind of like a courtroom judgment. They're not in front of me. They're not doing anything. I'm not a victim of what they did to those dogs. I just judge that as a poor thing for them to do. So I get you judgments in the past, judgment of past events. If we judge the Holocaust was a bad thing, are we a victim of the Holocaust? I think we're not. But still, it is a
we have
bad
a
judgment.
responsibility to keep it from happening again. And so that's something you maybe it's something you can change. If it's happened in the past and you think you can prevent it happening again, then that's a courage to change the thing you can change situation.
Yeah, the thing you can change is how you work to the future. Like the guy cleaning the freeway. If I judge him, he didn't victimize me because he wasted his week on the freeway.
Yeah.
So I'm not a victim of that, but I still judge that as a poor thing. If he comes and asks me, what should I do next week? Should I clean the other side of the freeway? And I say, definitely not. You should go back to work because the taxpayers are paying your salary. Whatever that case is, and he chooses to go clean the street, then he's disrespected me. Then I'm a victim of, I can claim a victim of him. Not that you're cleaning it, but that you cleaned it against your better understanding.
Yeah. I'm a taxpayer. I am paying your salary in one way or another.
And now you're victimizing me.
Get back in your office and take care of those papers that I sent in instead of
That's right.
spending all of the time out here.
Instead of cleaning up the papers that we threw out. But is the taxpayer a victim of the federal employees not being in the office? That's kind of the way it's presented.
Yeah, that was a just recent thing.
Yeah.
With President Trump deciding that everyone needed to go back into work.
Yeah, you're going to work in the office, or you can choose to have a vacation.
It was a 7-month
And we'll
7-month vacation.
8-month. Yeah, within 8 months, it's within the contract year. We've contractually already agreed to pay you this amount, so we're going to keep the contract valid. But if you choose not to work, just don't come in. We'll end it as of the end of this contract year, and enjoy your vacation if you want to. I'm happy to let you leave now.
Yeah, I'm assuming those people that choose to leave will have their clearances revoked, right? They wouldn't be able to go in and download all of the files and upload them to WikiLeaks or anything like that.
Well, and since they've been working at home, perhaps they have it already on their home computer anyway.
They all have it anyway.
As soon as they reply, agree, or yes, or whatever they said to reply to the email,
Then their computer blows up.
Reply that, it's already disallowed. So they immediately close the connection.
Yeah. Interesting situation.
Yeah. When you fire somebody, you have to take control.
I think the taxpayers are victims of the people that aren't doing their job,
That aren't working.
that aren't being effective.
If I, as a taxpayer, complain about them, then I'm taking the victim role to complain about them.
Because you can't change it.
Yeah, you can't change it. You can't do anything about it. So I'm a victim of something that's, if I, as a taxpayer, say, that's up to the government what they do with my tax money. Once I pay it to them, that's theirs, and so I'm not concerned.
It depends on who you're complaining to. If you complain to your representative of the state, like maybe, is that the person that you could complain to that could possibly instigate change?
Let's say you go to your congressman and say, I'm concerned about this. The only reason you go to them and state your negative judgment is because I'm feeling victimized.
Yeah.
You wouldn't go to them and state your judgment. You wouldn't even waste your congressman or senator's time if you were making a commendation. I think they're doing the right thing. Kudos to them for working at home and only working 6 hours a week. That's great. I'm happy that they can do that. And it doesn't matter to me that it's my tax dollars that are paying them. So you're not even going to call and make that commendation. You're only going to call if you feel like you're a victim. That's victim. I'm a victim of that. Now I've got to voice my negative opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're a victim, but maybe it can change though. If you're complaining to your neighbor, then you're a victim and there's nothing you guys can do together right there. Like you're not looking for a change. You're looking for someone to complain to.
For venting, just to vent.
Yeah.
If you're just venting with your judgments.
Anyone that vents
you're
is
still a victim.
In a victim role.
You're still in a victim role if you're venting. But even if you're legitimately, you're talking to the guy about the dog leash, and you go up to him and say, my dogs are on the leashes right here. Anytime that you're out, and we live right here in the same neighborhood, put your dog on the leash. I'm judging you as a poor citizen. You're one of the worst people in our whole neighborhood because you do
I wouldn't say that.
all of my other neighbors, we've talked about this again and again, and we know
all
that you're
agree.
the worst person in the neighborhood. If you just put a leash on your dog, you'll be one of the best, just like us. You'll be a Sneetch with a star on your belly, just like all of us.
Just like all of us.
So, but with that judgment, you are still victimized by him. But you potentially could change something. Now, if you went with a complete negative, you're not going to persuade him very well. If you just damage him with your words.
Yeah.
You could find some better way to persuade him, but by being victimized and by coming up with a negative judgment and finding the right way to persuade him, you could make that situation much better and get a positive resolution for everybody
through conversation.
Say, we're gonna place a tariff on your house. You're gonna pay the garbage fee for all of our houses if you don't put that leash on.
And it's totally legal.
Since
we're allowed to do this.
Yeah. Even though this will go through the courts, but I think when it gets through the courts, you'll find that it's legal.
So like all of this is we're talking about this because I don't like condemning people. I don't like having judgments that are negative of people. I don't like it.
Right.
And even if it was, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I don't want to judge negatively anybody who has definitely done something wrong.
Like a predator, a sexual offender that's listed on webpage.
Or even by extension, not by extension, even in the extreme end, maybe serial killers. Maybe I don't want to judge them negatively. I don't want to hold negative judgments of anyone. Boundaries. I think boundaries is what I want. I don't want to condemn, but I do want to have boundaries. Maybe. Does that seem logical?
What does condemn mean? Condemn means to limit their action. You put up a boundary, you're condemning them with your boundary.
With my boundary.
You are setting, whatever condemn means. What does it mean?
I spelled it wrong. It won't tell me. Express complete disapproval of, typically in public. That's the first one. Sentence someone to a particular punishment. That's the second definition.
Right. A punishment. You're punishing them by setting a boundary that I'm going to punish you for my presence. If you use those words, I'm going to have to leave. I mean, I can't, you can use the words, that's fine, but you're not going to have my presence around you.
Yeah.
You won't have all this positive energy that I bring to the table isn't going to be at your table if you're using those words. So setting boundaries, you're condemning them, even if
privately
you're just protecting yourself.
Yeah. So I guess having boundaries is still a condemnation.
It's a judgment. Based on judgment, you feel like you need a boundary. If you feel like you need a boundary, you're a victim and you're trying to protect your victimhood by not being damaged by that victim status. So if you were going to change it to a creator, well, we talked about that before.
Yeah.
You have to persuade them that your way of thinking is right. And if they still choose not to think that way, how do you avoid continuing in that judgment?
How do you avoid putting up boundaries?
Yeah. If you identify that, let's just say for supposition that we get to the end of the conversation and we believe that boundaries are victimized, you're agreeing you're a victim if you're going to put up a boundary. So how do you live your life without ever putting up a boundary?
There's that other option where you can just change your thinking about the situation. You're like, well, okay, from now on, I'm going to be okay with everyone who has their dog off a leash, regardless of whether my dogs are out or not. Like, I'm okay with it. But you got to really believe it.
If the dog's off the leash and your dogs are out and your dogs kill that dog.
Yeah.
You're afraid that they're going to sue you because of that death.
Yeah, I'm going to be out of a lot of money because of that situation that was out of my control.
Yes.
But that happens all the time.
So that's why you're the victim.
So I get a flat tire, then I'm out a few $100s, a couple $100s for a new tire.
Yeah.
Or I'm get a flat tire and I hit someone else's car. There's financial repercussions for lots of things out of our control.
Circumstances happen all the time.
Yeah. And so maybe that's just another circumstance that happened.
And your thought. So in the model of the circumstance, your thinking, your feelings, your actions, your thoughts are what we're trying to deal with. That's the only thing you can control.
Yeah.
Is internal. It's your internal world. And your internal judgments are concerning to us, if our internal judgments are concerning to us, because we don't care about other people's judgments. We can't hear them. We don't know them. We don't know that they placed a boundary on us.
Right.
And their wonderful presence isn't at our table.
Uh-huh.
We don't miss it. So it doesn't affect us at all. It's affecting them. They're the one that placed the boundary.
Yeah. And they're playing the victim and they have that boundary and they're making sure that nobody crosses it.
Yeah. So that they don't have to be damaged by whatever it is, by a dog off a leash. They're not going to be damaged by that because they've got a boundary. They put up a fence in front of their house.
Yeah. So
that dog off a leash is never going to cross my property.
Right.
I've locked him out.
Yes. Or if you're just keeping your dogs in, then you're a victim. You're a victim of your dogs because you have to keep them in. That's the boundary you've set, is to keep them in.
Yeah. So your dogs never get to run. They never get the exercise that they could get. If you put up a fence, you're condemning that dog not to be on this piece of land. I'm condemning him from my private property.
Yeah.
That external dog.
So boundaries are then, you think, maybe is what we're seeing is boundaries are from a victim stance. If you have a boundary, then you're accepting being a victim.
And is it based in, and you're doing that based on the judgment that you're holding. So we're talking about judgments. You never place a boundary unless you have a poor judgment of something.
Mm-hmm.
Would you place a boundary under of a commendation judgment, an agreement? I agree to this, so I'm going to bound it. I'm going to condemn it because I agree
Okay,
with it.
so putting up a fence to keep your dogs from running into the street, maybe that would be you agree that your dogs should live, and so
And they should run.
and they should run, and they have all of this space to run within the fence.
Yeah, so there's a boundary. You're putting a boundary for positive activity.
Making a safe space, but then you keep the bat out still. You're still potentially like, so now I'm thinking of a safe space to talk, like a safe space for a minority group to come together and feel validated in their minorityness. And so no challengers allowed in here. No villains allowed in here. So it's a boundary against the villains, but it's a safe space. It makes it safer for the people within that boundary.
It's like not being able to visit the elementary schools.
Yeah.
I was a little confused at that as a parent. I wasn't able to go into
You
the
had to,
school.
yeah, all of the doors are locked. You had to go in through the office, right?
Yeah, and then they had to escort you, even though you're the parent, because it's got to be a safe place for all the children,
Yeah.
not just your children, but all the children. And so you could go in if you're a parent, if you had a reason, but if you weren't a parent, there's no, I mean, you can't go and visit an elementary school. Just, I just want to walk around and see what it looks like. No, you can't do that.
It's not a public space. It's a public school, but it's not a public space.
Correct. This is a safe space, and the safe space means no outsider, even whatever their intention. If they've got good intentions, great. Come to the office, talk to us about it. If there's a reason, we'll escort you with your intention. But we're not going to let anybody. You can't just walk like it's a park. An elementary school is not a park. You can't go play on the playground while the kids are playing on the playground. It's their playground. They're safe there. It's a safety place.
Yeah.
That's why they have the fence, not to keep them in, but to make sure there's a delineation. This is the safe space. The street is over there. You can stay on the street if you like, but you're not coming in here.
Right.
That type of boundary is it a victim. You are still a victim. You're creating a safe space because you don't want to be victimized by the nefarious things that may exist on the street.
Yeah. And by preventing the potential predator from coming in, then you're already creating a victim status,
Right.
even though you're not a victim yet.
Let's say you're a victim of the children on the playground in the elementary school. You don't want them just wandering the streets. You don't want them to walk away at 2 miles and then not be able to get back or get lost or.
Right. A victim of the future consequences of letting the kids out.
Yeah. So you're a victim there too. You've got to have 2 teachers in the playground watching, people that are trusted and inside the system, watching to make sure that there's nothing bad that happens to the people that you are victims of. So you have to change the people you're serving, the kids you're serving. If you have to create a safe space for them, you are a victim of that as well.
So is this victim status a justifiable victim status? Can you feel okay with being a victim in that way? I mean, we talked about privacy, and am I okay in keeping myself safe, taking steps to keep myself safe by setting boundaries? I am putting myself on the victim side, but am I justified in that? That's a good thing.
Is it possible to not do that? Is there any place in elementary school or young children who definitely they're dependent, they need assistance? You can't just let them run around anywhere. Life's too dangerous. The world's too dangerous to just throw them outside and say, do what you do. You're a 3-year-old. Are you a victim of that? You chose that.
Yeah, if you lived a little bit more farther away from the city, farther away from traffic, public schools are usually very accessible. And so that means there's a lot of roads around them.
They're right in the middle of a community. They're where they need to be, close to the consumers of that school.
Right. So if you were a off the grid homeschooler, then you could let your 3-year-old out and you didn't have like a lake or a river or something they could drown in, like you felt safe,
Right.
you could put them outside and say, just go do whatever you want. And you could not be a victim.
Well, and just back to whether you're homeschooling now, but agrarian society, if you happen to live in a house 40 acres, 40 miles away from any neighbor,
Yeah.
10 miles from your closest neighbor,
And there's nothing but wheat fields everywhere around you.
your animals too would be able to run. So you let your dogs and your kids run outside, and that's the way I was raised. I was raised out on a road. There was a road in front of the house, but it was a dirt road. One car a day maybe drove on it.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter where we were, my mother didn't care where we were, anywhere out there. And we would walk up in the fields, would walk miles, maybe miles. There was a mulberry tree probably a mile away that we went to quite often.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, maybe it was only a quarter mile, but it was a long ways as kids.
Yeah.
Walking up to that tree. That society, you were able to do that. But when we went to school, I mean, I was in school too, in elementary school, then you had the fences and you had the bus. You had to stand here and wait for the bus, and you couldn't walk up to it. You had to wait for the teacher to lead you to the bus.
Right.
Because that was out in the parking lot. That's out on the road where someone could run over you. So you stand behind this fence until it's time, till the bus opens the door, and then we lead you to it.
Yeah.
So
A safe space. And everyone in that safe space, in hoping to be not a victim, is already a victim of what could happen.
So in that status, that's their job. Their job is to create a safe space, so they're a victim of creating that safe space and maintaining that safe space. That's their job, though. So are we victims of our employment? And I think we are there too.
Yeah.
So victim mentality, I don't know that you can... The difference between in that drama triangle, the victim or a creator, you can choose to frame yourself as a victim of your job or a creator in your job. So the correct status would be the creator in your job, a creator of the safe space, as opposed to a victim of, I have to stand here doing this job. I hate my job. You could say, I love my job. I get to work with kids. I get to watch them play on the playground. I get to turn them around and help them understand that this is the gate. You don't walk through this gate.
Mm-hmm.
That's for people to come in. That's for us to go to the bus. But when you're playing, play on those toys over there, but don't play on this gate. This isn't the place to play. So I'm creating a new educational experience for the child.
Yeah. Okay. We veered away from judgment, and now we're talking about victim again, which is one of our favorite topics. Yeah. Should I even try and stop holding negative judgments of anyone? Or should I try more to recognize where the judgment is keeping me safe versus where maybe it's just a stupid thing that I'm thinking and it doesn't matter?
The serenity prayer. So you brought that up.
Yeah.
Change the things I can change. So you want change. And that's why you framed that early. It says, if it's going to affect positive change for me or for the world or for society, I want to do it. I want to voice that judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a victim, if I can change it, if I can change something, and if I can't change it, then yeah, you should be able to let those judgments go. Do you find it's hard to let those judgments go of things you can't change that you choose? You value that that's something that I can't do anything about. Is it okay? Is it easy to drop that judgment?
I don't think it's easy, because then I would have done it already. I think...
Well, what's one that you feel like you could drop, that you can't change? You're not using to change anything. You're just holding a judgment.
Well, I mentioned a few weeks ago that I know somebody who I'm pretty certain is a pathological liar. And for some reason that bothers me. But is the judgment that I'm holding for them I value not lying about everything under the sun that I could lie about, right? I value that. I don't think that their lying affects me. They're not telling people lies about me. They're just grandiose about themselves. So I should just not care about it, right? It shouldn't affect how I act around them. It shouldn't affect whether I feel comfortable being around them or not.
Does it make a difference if you're married to them or if they're just a person 3 blocks away?
I think if I was married to them, that would be more difficult, because maybe then I would have to add a caveat to everything they say to everyone that I'm there. Maybe.
And by that, he means it was
Right.
fun.
Right. No. So this person doesn't talk like that when they are with their spouse though. So because sometimes I spend time with both of them and their spouse. And so
Right.
when they're together, it doesn't seem like I hear anything that could be grandiose or fictional. I don't hear any fiction when I'm with both of them. But when I'm with one of them, then I hear a lot of fiction, what I think is fiction. So
How does that hurt you? That's what you're saying. It doesn't really hurt you.
it doesn't hurt me. It's against my value of not telling people lies about your life,
Or
but
not exaggerating your life? Is it exaggerations? You said grandiose. I mean, exaggerations or complete lies. I was born a poor black child.
yeah, that kind of thing.
That's a complete lie.
I think that.
But it's funny.
Yeah. I think it's complete lies. That's what I think. I think.
And it's not funny. He's not saying it for fun. He's
Right.
saying it, or she's saying it. They're saying it because of they really believe it.
I don't know.
You don't know what their purpose is. You don't know what they're trying to persuade you of something. And you don't know what the persuasion point, what their tactic is.
Right.
But even there, you're identifying this is a person that's a pathological liar. You could be a victim of it and say, I want to put up the boundary. I just put up a boundary. Or you could say, let's try to find out why they're lying. I'm going to press back with them. You could take it as a game. Say, this is going to be fun.
I did that once. They said something and I said something like, that sounds completely unbelievable. And everybody around laughed at like I was making a joke. But I was saying seriously, what you just said sounds unbelievable.
Yeah. And that's why it was funny, because it was so true to the core of what's actually happening. They all know that it was a lie too.
I guess. I don't know.
And that's what humor is. Humor is pointing out the obvious fallacies or problems in a situation.
Yeah.
That's humorous.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a problem, it wouldn't be funny. It's a problem. But I think you should take that to the next step at some point. Say, when I said unbelievable, I meant, I think you lied. Point blank. What's the actual truth of that? And not in the group, but take them to the side, her to the side, and say, here's why I said that unbelievable. Everyone laughed. It was funny. And I think you thought it was funny too. I want to be serious for a second. You said this. What part of that did you make up?
But do I need to do that though? Like, it doesn't matter.
That would be fun.
It would be fun, but it could hurt them. It could cause harm.
Are you afraid of that? Are you a victim to that now?
I'm a victim of
Is
my
that your
fear
judgment?
of hurting people, hurting other people's feelings.
Your judgment is that it potentially could go very poorly
Yeah.
if you tried to persuade that person to change a little bit.
Yeah. It could potentially go poorly.
And if it does go poorly, then that I think would benefit you, that you wouldn't have to set up the boundary of limiting
would just
yourself,
take
because
myself
that
out
person would disappear.
Yeah.
That person would be offended so much, they would disappear.
Whether I spend time with this person or not is dependent on me choosing whether to be there or not, though. They're going to be there no matter what. I have to stop doing something that I regularly do. It's like a church group. If you have someone in your church that you just don't like, you have negative feelings about them, then what do? Stop going to church? Ask them to stop going to church? You just deal with it. You create a space where you can both exist in the same spot without.
I have an example.
Yeah.
Let me try an example. There was a lady in our church that said, I don't feel safe. Her statement to me was, I don't feel safe. I was teaching a class and
Okay.
I was trying to have a conversation. I think she wanted to stay her whole point and then wait till she was done before I said anything else. And I was trying to converse with her directly as you and I are talking.
Okay.
When you converse with someone, you're in the middle of the conversation. You say something, they say something. It's a discussion. She didn't feel safe. And so she stopped. She says, I'm not going to come to this class anymore.
Okay. She took herself
And
out
so
of the
I
class.
thought it was bad. Yeah, she took herself out, and I said, I'm sorry. I was just so, and I publicly apologized for that a little later too. In the class, I said, I'm just trying to converse. So I kind of described what I thought it was.
Okay.
And then it was about a year later that I went to her directly, and I said, are you okay with me? Are you upset at all? Because we did have that about a year ago. And she said, oh no, you'd know if I was upset. You'd know if I were mad at you.
You'd know.
So yeah,
Oh, man.
she said it that way. And so
Yeah.
so she's fine. And now we've had a good relationship over the years, and she's never made a comment in a class that I was in again. So maybe she still has the boundary, but it hasn't broken the relationship.
Okay.
Whatever that, distant relationship is. At least she doesn't admit to it. And I don't admit to it. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to go and ask her any questions either.
Yeah. So you approached her about it. She approached you first. She gave you that, I don't feel safe. That's what happened. But then you weren't in the same space anymore after that. And so she separated herself from the situation.
Yeah, she took herself away.
Yeah. And I think it would be a bad thing for everyone involved if either I or this other person took ourselves away from this situation. I think the best thing would be to let them think that they're getting away with all of their lies, and for me to just let them brush off the back of it, like water off a duck's back or whatever. Like it's just So there was another one, and that's okay. I'm not gonna move forward with any decisions based on what they just said. So that's my boundary.
And is that easy to do? It's not necessarily a boundary, because you're not placing a boundary. You're not saying I'm going to bound that. I'm going to allow I'm going to hear all those words. So it's like the idea, if you use those words, I'm going to not be at your table.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that. You're not going to put up a boundary. You're going to say, use those words. I don't appreciate it, but it's not going to affect me. I'm not going to judge those words.
Yeah.
If you use those specific, that specific way of speech, and I can term it a lie, I'm going to be okay with it. I'm going to allow it.
Yeah.
How do you allow things? If you judge it, I'm not necessarily going to agree. So you're not going to go all the way to the side of I agree with it. I'm going to support you 100%. I'm going to commend you for it. I'm just going to sit right in the middle of the spectrum. I'm not going to judge it as a condemnation, but I'm not going to commend it. I'm just going to allow it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I'd prefer to do. I think I'd prefer to have things on the commend side, positive judgments of people, and then I'd like to be at the very farthest on the negative side, neutral. That's where I'd like to be. I don't want to be on it doesn't feel good. I think that's my problem, is I don't feel good when I'm thinking about negative things, negative judgments I have of other people. And so I want to stop having negative judgments of other people.
And that's a mindset. That's clearly, the 7 habits, as we get into that book, that's the private
victory
wins, private victories, and the public victories. Your public victories are those things, you don't want to judge anyone in the public. You want to have your private victories. So you have to not be, and that's the definition of dependence or independent. Interdependence is the thing working with other people. If you're independent, then you're not victimized by anyone. Someone who's dependent on things is going to be victimized by it.
Okay.
And your judgments are going to rule your life. I judge that you've just damaged me because I'm relying on you feeling good about me, and now you've disrespected me. So an independent person, someone who says, I think you should go to work instead of cleaning that side of the freeway, and that's my opinion. If you choose to be a victim, it's because you felt dependent on that. You needed their commendation for your good advice. If you don't need their condemnation for your good advice, my advice is there. Thank you for your advice. Well, thank you for listening. And then you both walk your different ways. There's no judgments. There's no ill feelings. There's no victimization on either of your parts. You're just now living your own life independently.
Yeah. So you think that this will resolve itself as I read this book then, as I get through the 7 habits, start practicing that, then maybe I will just be less negatively judgmental of people.
Exactly. Are you on page 52 yet?
I actually just got there today. Yeah. I'm reading the 30th anniversary edition though, with Sean Covey's excerpts, extra stuff at the end of each chapter.
Oh, so we're not on the same pages.
We're still not on the same page, no.
But we're about in the same area.
I haven't started Habit 1 yet. I just finished the one right before that.
Okay, and you didn't get the thing about judgment and dependence and independence. You
I
read
did
about
get that.
independence.
Yeah.
You read all that description. That whole description says where you need to sit. So if you're sitting as an independent person, you won't have poor judgments about anybody.
Okay.
Because you know you're stable in yourself. Your opinions are your opinions. If you're dependent on someone, let me read just what it said here. Dependencies such as letting the weaknesses of other people ruin your emotional lives, like that lying ruins my emotional life, or feeling victimized by people and events out of your control, which we talked about in the Serenity Prayer, those things I can control.
Yeah.
You're dependent on the things that you can't control, that you're feeling like you want to be controlled by. Of course, we may need to change our circumstances, but the dependence problem is a personal maturity issue and has little to do with circumstances.
Okay. Doesn't matter what's happening.
Yeah, judgments of other people is a maturity issue as you gain maturity. So he's using the maturity span too in describing these things.
Yeah.
If you're more mature, it doesn't matter what people think of you or whether they lie. Their lies are, I don't want to lie, but you're making your own choices. So
being okay with what other people are doing.
Yeah, and the fact that you can never one up the story in that group, he's always going to have the biggest, nicest, greatest things that happen. That's okay with me. I'm independent. I don't depend on being the top of the group, but he does. Apparently, he's dependent on that, or she.
Yeah,
you're not going to
whoever it
identify
is.
who that is.
In your head, it's a male, so that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. You're not judging me for that statement that all bad guys are males and all good people are women.
Right.
That all dogs are males and all cats are females. Yeah,
right.
It doesn't matter.
That's just how it goes.
What I think.
Women never lie.
Exactly. That's right. So it's a maturity issue. I think more than victimization.
Okay. Immature people judge negatively. I think we all have to judge. I'm reminded, hold on, let me look it up here. Because I just recently listened to Jordan Peterson being interviewed by Stephen Bartlett on the Diary of a CEO podcast, right? I took down some notes, and I think one of them was, they were talking about Stephen being a podcaster, I guess. And Jordan said, you have to judge because you have to listen and you have to separate wheat from chaff. Separate wheat from chaff. You have to evaluate, but you can do that without careless condemnation. Careless condemnation. So maybe there's careful condemnation and careless condemnation.
Careless condemnation is just you're wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah.
But a careful condemnation would be, have you thought that through completely? Let's just look at one of the avenues if you choose to go that route.
Okay.
Here's something that may happen.
Yeah.
Opening a conversation. That's why Jordan Peterson, and he said that to Stephen in that thing. He says, it's a big conversation. The questions, to answer a simple question, like, do I believe in God?
Yeah.
It takes a lot longer. It's not just a yes, no answer. People are asking, in these Senate confirmation hearings, they say, do you believe this? Yes or no? Yes or no? Well,
just say yes or no.
Sometimes it takes a 15-minute description, and that you have to infer the yes or no. And hopefully we'll get to talk about that question. We'll have to do that sometime in the future.
About whether Jordan Peterson believes in God or not?
Yeah, what it means to believe in God. What that means and why yes or no isn't an appropriate answer to that question, whether it's appropriate or not. But that's what I want to treat at some point. So we're putting that on our topic list down the road. So look forward to that. Do you believe in God?
Yeah.
As a generic question, that's going to be a topic of conversation at some point, because Jordan's been talking about it for years now, and everyone's trying to get him to answer yes or no, and he will never answer yes or no to that question, I don't believe.
Yeah.
It would be very surprising if he ever does.
Yeah, I think he did answer yes, but what God?
He always answers yes. I think all of his answers are well in the affirmative. He says, I act like I believe in God. So that'll be a good conversation. We'll get to
Yeah.
that at that point, because that touches on our second conversation of precision of speech and what something actually means. And that's what Jordan Peterson is really good at, identifying what belief means. What do you mean by belief? Let's talk about it for an hour. He talks about an hour what belief means.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of what we're doing anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. We're talking about what judgment is. And we've really figured out that it means a couple of things, and maturity. We could go deeper into maturity.
Yeah, we should add that to our future topics, maturity, and what that means for victims and what that means for...
Here's one other thing I had about judgment that I just circled here in my notes beforehand is benefit of the doubt. If you give someone the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So doubt means judgment. If you doubt something, you've issued a judgment. I doubt that what you said is true.
Okay.
But if you give someone the benefit of the doubt, you're saying, but I'm going to commend you for it. I'm going to leave it on the positive side. I'm not going to condemn the doubt. I'm going to benefit the doubt.
Like literally benefiting of, if you give them the benefit of the doubt, you hear someone accuse someone of something and you're like, well, I'm going to benefit you by doubting that you did that or something. Is that what? It's one of those phrases that mean nothing. Like everyone just says benefit of the doubt, benefit of the doubt. And what does that even mean, really? Precision of speech.
Yeah, where it identifies judgment, that there's a judgment involved in that. The reason you doubt in the first place. So I would like to talk about that now.
Uh-huh.
Doubt is part of judgment. You're doubting that something's true, or you're doubting that it's false.
Right.
Someone said, you're wrong. Well, I doubt that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So I believe I'm right. And my doubt of your statement that I'm wrong, let's discuss this. But I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and think that I'm wrong. Now let's approach that from that standpoint. So the benefit of the doubt is I'm doubting that you did something, but the benefit is, let's suppose the opposite for a while.
Okay. Let's assume the best about this situation for a minute.
So if you doubt something, it means you think it's not true, that it didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
But if I give you the benefit of the doubt, perhaps it did happen that way. So I doubt it. It didn't happen that way. I'm doubting that that's happened. But if I give the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to assume or allow that it happened that way. I'm going to, in the middle of this judgment table, I'm not going to defend you, not going to tell you you're right, but I'm going to allow it to exist as that benefit. My benefit is to stay in the middle of the road with this.
I understand the meaning of the phrase. I just think that it's one of those phrases that we should do without and just say what we mean plainly.
So what else would you say?
You would say, you say that this is true, and I'm going to allow that perhaps it is true, even though I didn't believe it straight off.
See, you just disrespected me right there, and I feel poorly because of that. So let's use that example.
But if you want to say you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, then you are actually saying, okay, I will consider your point.
I'm going to withhold judgment on it. Maybe.
I'm going to withhold.
Consider your point, withhold judgment, benefit of the doubt. You accuse me of using too many words because one of your introductory statements back to me was, I know what the words mean. Stop explaining to me what the words mean. Is that what you said to me?
Yeah, I said, I get what it means. I get what it means, but
right.
It's just one of those phrases that we shouldn't use because its meaning...
Right, that's what you said.
Its true meaning is being lost.
So you think my thinking is in a wrong direction in regard to this idea. You said, you're going down a path that I don't want to go down. I know what it means. Shut up and listen to what I'm trying to say.
I was getting annoyed because you kept saying benefit like it was the opposite. You kept saying benefit of the doubt, and you were saying...
And you don't believe it's opposite. So that's good. Tell me more about that. Why is benefit not opposite?
Benefit is something that's good. I'm going to benefit you with this.
Okay.
So if you are benefiting someone with a doubt, that means that you're it's like someone told you something about this person. Okay? Someone told me
Okay.
that President Trump is a tyrant or whatever. And
Okay.
or the equivalent of Hitler. And I'm going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to doubt what that person said about him. I'm going to benefit him with my doubting what that person said about him.
You're benefiting him.
Yeah, I'm going to give him the benefit of my doubt.
Because you possibly think that he's Hitler or a dictator, a tyrant.
Because somebody told me, so I could think that.
Someone told you, so it's possible that he's a tyrant. You're saying, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt
and not think that
I'm
straight off.
going to withhold judgment right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just label him as a tyrant. I'm going to allow him to do what he does. Let him be in the presidency. Let's see how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to place judgment. I'm not going to put my next YouTube video or my next TikTok statement that he is a tyrant.
Right.
I'm not going to say that right now. I'll wait. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now, but I still hold the doubt. The doubt still is there, so it's still possible that he's a tyrant. But I'm giving him the benefit of that doubt. Giving him that benefit.
The subject of the doubt is the person saying something negative about Trump.
Subject of the doubt.
I'm doubting them, the third party. I'm doubting them. I'm not doubting Trump. The doubt is relating to that third person.
You're talking to the person, but you're not. So you're telling the third person, you believe he's a tyrant. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt.
No, I'm giving Trump the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so you're talking to the third person. He's saying, Trump's a tyrant, but I'm giving Trump the benefit of the doubt because I'm going to reserve judgment on that. He might be a tyrant. He might not. He might be a benefactor.
Yeah.
We'll find out. We will tell through time what he is.
Yeah.
And the guy says, I know he's a tyrant. Oh, it's obvious. It's obvious.
Yeah, they're not giving Trump the benefit of the doubt. I am. Like that. That it's a,
Okay.
That's what I come to understand.
That's how
you
see it. That's how you see it. Your judgment on that, though,
is wrong. Are you going to tell me?
His judgment, because it's negative, it's a he. His judgment being negative, that he's a tyrant, that's judgmental. He's a victim. The reason he stated that is because he's a victim.
Yes.
So you're saying more maturely, he immaturely, independently is saying, now he's going to make all my rights disappear. I'm a guy that's afraid of not being able to have an abortion if I want one.
Yeah.
So he's a victim. That's why he's stated that opinion about a tyrant. You're saying, I'm going to take a more mature stance. I'm going to give Trump the benefit of the doubt and indicate that I'm going to reserve judgment, withhold judgment. I'm not going to, whatever you said, something else that you're doing. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to allow what you said.
Yeah.
Judges will say that at times too. When someone says objection, I object. Well, I'm going to allow it this time. So overruled, your objection sustained, or, I'm not going to sustain that objection.
Right.
So I'm going to allow it. I'm going to allow it right this time because we're not going to base judgment on that issue. Let's continue the conversation. Let's continue the trial. So withholding judgment is a more mature stance. So is that a mature stance? Can you be more mature if you exact a judgment?
I think when you withhold judgment, what you're doing is you're withholding a negative or a positive judgment. You're keeping the judgment neutral because can you not judge something? I think we talked about that, right? We can't not judge. We can't not have a judgment.
Yeah. But if you maintain neutrality, if you identify, the things you can change, if you identify it's something I can't change, so I'm okay with it. I'm not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to allow it because.
Not necessarily promote it, but,
Yeah. I'm not going to say he's great. He's a king or a tyrant or a whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really hold an opinion. And I do hold an opinion. I definitely hold an opinion, but I'm not going to voice it. I'm not going to make it instrumental in our conversation, in our relationship right now. So that's benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
That's bringing it back to the center. Benefit of the doubt may just bring everything back to the center to allow.
Okay. I think that makes sense.
If something's true. So you're saying that do you believe in God? God's true is a well-posited thing. Instead of condemning it, saying God's not true, or saying definitely God's true, you're going to give that supposition that God exists the benefit of the doubt and just remain neutral with it. I'm not going to fight against it. I'm not going to fight for it.
I think you could say that.
So that's where, should we be living our lives in that center of, if you can't change it. So you said too, judgments, you want to use judgments appropriately for things that you can make better. If you determine you're not going to make God any better or worse. I had that question in regard to God. To glorify God. If God is this all glorious being, why do we need to glorify him?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need us. So let's just remain neutral in that. Let him have his glory, or let him have no glory on one side or the other. But I'm here. Let me be me.
Yeah, there are people who believe that it is their job on this earth to testify of the goodness of God. And so that's maybe how they glorify him. They do the work that they think is necessary for their job. Their job as a human, their job is to bring people to Christ. So
right. And Jesus is the center of everything, and which he is perhaps and everything there, but you could say, I'm going to give God the benefit of the doubt. Is that what you're doing? You're giving God the benefit of the doubt? And in that case, or
I would be giving the other side the benefit of the doubt. I would be doubting the other side. I'd be doubting the side that says there's no God. So yes, I'm benefiting God with the doubt, with doubting the other side.
Yeah.
So I'm giving God the benefit of the doubt.
So it's still in relation to the subject. The subject of the doubt is where the benefit applies. Benefit applies to the subject of the doubt. What it doubts.
As the subject of the benefit. I think there's the person that's we're getting into the weeds with this phrase. I don't think it really matters, because it does have a meaning, and everybody basically knows what it means, but
nobody knows what it means.
Nobody knows what it means.
So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and allow that to just sit, rather than judging you of
okay.
being shallow.
Maybe I should write an article about the benefit of the doubt. I bet there's already one out there. I should just look it up.
Yeah, we were going to talk about maturity, not benefit of the doubt. So
right.
Maturity may be a better idea.
Yeah. All right.
Though that does deserve delving into. It's one of those topics that we talk about that is major importance, or maybe not at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's mundane, perhaps.
Yeah.
All right, I think my minute is up. So, is this okay to stop here?
Yep.
All right.
We're good.
Well, this has been a fun conversation, and I didn't get bored at all in the middle of that anywhere.
You got upset a couple times, but not bored.
Did I get upset? Yes, I think upset is an appropriate.
I did. You disrespected me, clearly.
That's right.
I got upset.
So what are we talking about next week? Now
that we talked about the sides of the continuum of what's the typical place to sit, what's neurotypical mean, and where should you be on this? Is it a spectrum? If it's a spectrum, if it's a binary, if it's a continuum, what is neurotypical?
What is it? Yes. What is typical and what is neuro?
Yeah, we'll find out where it came from, why it was introduced, and what it relates to. And I think it's a recent word as well. It has to do with the autism spectrum and spectrumizing everybody. Then there became a neurotypical concept. So we'll talk about all the aspects of that, whatever we can think.
Great. Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode. And we appreciate feedback and comments and topic requests. You can find all of our contact information in the show notes. We hope you have a great week. Thanks.
Excellent.
Okay, bye.
Good night. Bye.